meeting at 6 p.m. No, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Election of chair and vice chair is first on the agenda. Go ahead. Somebody needs to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion
Okay,
that we nominate Kaya
as chair.
as chair.
I'll second that.
All in
Oh, all in favor? Do I do that?
She does that.
Oh, sure. All in favor? All in favor of,
Aye.
yeah.
Now, vice chair is a little bit more up for grabs.
Yeah. Does anyone have any interest in being vice chair? So that would entail running the meetings when I'm not here, signing things when I'm not
Signing
here.
plats, yeah.
Signing
occasionally.
plats. Anyone have particular interest?
What?
Marianne?
I
Mary
will
Ann?
volunteer.
Okay. Can I have a motion
I motion that.
to Marianne? All right, motion on the table is Marianne Becknell for vice chair.
I'll second.
All right, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Hey,
That's fast.
welcome.
Great.
Marianne. Okay, so February meeting dates, I had sent an email out wondering if we could do a shift in the February meeting since we have 5 Thursdays in the month. But we decided not to do that because of various conflicts. So we will have the normal meeting dates will be February 13th and then February 27th.
Okay.
A couple other little items. I also sent around, we should add this to the agenda, sort of comments or whatever. But I sent around information to you on the Utah chapter of the American Planning Association Conference. The way it works for people who are not professional planners, you're called citizen planners. For one fee, we were able to register up to 10 people. And I don't think we're going to have 10 people coming at any one time. So once the updated schedule comes out, I will send it out to all of you, and I'll make a copy for Brian. And you can basically go to any of the sessions that you want. It's at the Hoodoo. And Planning Commission night, there is a social that night, which I will probably be at unless I absolutely have to be here. So Corey will probably be on his own that night, but we'll see what's on the agenda. So that was all I really had to say. I wanted Luke to introduce himself a little bit and then have us go around and introduce ourselves, give us some background.
Sounds great.
So who are you?
My name is Luke Wojciechowski. I'm not sure what other info you're looking for. I'm the director of programs at Sea Haven here in town. So, yeah, I don't know.
Why did
How do you
want
spell
to be
your
a...
first name?
Luke, L-U-K-E.
Okay.
I guess legally it's L-U-K-A-S-Z.
And you don't want to know how
Yeah,
to
Luke's
spell his
better.
last name?
Yeah, last name's way worse. I mean, a part of it is I've gotten the opportunity of building a home through the sweat equity program here in town. So kind of like laid down some roots, and one of the biggest challenges that we face in Sea Haven is helping our clients find like affordable housing like in the community in a timely manner. So to give them like the ability to kind of gain some independence and like move into a safe environment for themselves and their children.
And I don't know if you know everybody else. Jessica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Jessica O'Leary.
There you are.
There I am. I've been in Moab on and off since '97.
Okay. You guys know
You
each
next?
Yeah.
other? Know each other?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
me. I'm Kaya.
Right, I'm Brian Ballard. I've lived in Moab about 40 years, and I build homes and have a great interest in our community.
I'm Marianne. I know you and your dog.
Oh,
And then we're missing Becky Wells tonight as far as the rest of the planning commission goes, and we have one yet unappointed position still,
Yeah.
so.
And I saw Becky's baby yesterday.
You did, I saw pictures.
She is absolutely adorable.
Yeah.
She's so cute and so little. Oh my gosh.
So she will be back soon, hopefully.
Probably.
Yeah. Great. Is that all for discussion items?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, and this is Corey and Nora.
Oh yeah, Corey.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. We'll talk a lot more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Corey was a planning commissioner until he got yoinked by the staff.
I still am.
All right, so we have, moving on to item number 4, approval of minutes. We were just hearing that we have one set of minutes outstanding because they're trying to transcribe them, I think from June, early June, the first meeting in June. So those will be on probably our next agenda. But for now, we have a lot of minutes to approve. So if I could have a motion.
Yeah, you
That
can
would
do
be
them
great.
either all at once or individually.
Yeah.
Sure, so I just looked over the last meeting that we approved, August 22nd and September 12th. I was not here November 7th, but I can approve all the remaining minutes except for November 7th, which would be June 27th, July 3rd, September 26th, October 10th, and November 21st. So I'd like to move to approve those minutes I just listed.
Great. Second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of approving the minutes Marianne just listed, which excluded
November 7th.
November 7th? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I wasn't here for
Yeah.
most
Do
of
we?
those.
You don't have to be here.
Yeah, you don't have to be here, so.
I reviewed them and
Yeah.
said they looked good
Okay.
because I was here.
Good.
And then the ones I didn't review were the 7th, and someone else can review those if you were
Yes.
here.
Great. So I'll call for a motion again now that we understand that. So we are motioning to approve Mary Ann's reviewing of those minutes and motioning to approve them. So all in favor? Aye. That's fine. Motion passes. So that was November 7th was still unapproved. Is there someone other than myself who was at that meeting who would be able to make that motion?
I'm looking through it right now.
Brian and Jesso, you were both here.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second? We can wait.
I'll second.
All right. Motion to approve the minutes from November 7th, 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Okay, item number 5, citizens to be heard. If you would like to speak, I should have said this at the beginning of the meeting, if anyone's here for citizens to be heard, so this is something not otherwise on our agenda. So if this is the ordinance amendment or the minor subdivision, you'll have other time. But if it's for something not on our agenda, if you'd like to speak, there are slips in the hallway, just fill your name out on that. And then you can come up to the microphone. Is there anyone here
Well,
for
you have to-
citizens to be heard?
Turn it over and turn it on.
Anyone?
You'll actually, yeah, you'll have a chance under the public hearing. So
Oh, you will,
can
okay.
Give that to her.
Yeah, so this is things not on the agenda otherwise. There will be the public hearing right after this. Great, thank you. Okay, last call for any citizens to be heard. Okay, moving on, item number 6, public hearing and possible recommendation to City Council of an ordinance amending the City of Moab Municipal Code, Section 1769050E, to modify the minimum square footage for construction of workforce housing units from 1,000 square feet to a minimum of 400 square feet. So if it's all right with you, Nora, we'll do a presentation and then we can open the public hearing?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you to open the public hearing, listen to the presentation, take public input, and then I'm going to ask you to continue the public hearing because by the time we canceled the last meeting due to lack of a quorum, it was too late to notice it for this meeting because of
Got it.
when we have to get things to the newspaper. So it has been officially renoticed for next week, so for 2 weeks. Actually, it's 3 weeks for the next meeting. So we will, we'll ask you to continue the public hearing and then take action at that time. And I apologize to the applicant for that. It's just one of those timing issues that we run into. So this is a request, and the city is actually initiating this request. An ordinance was adopted over a year ago that was talked about for a long time called the Assured Workforce Housing Ordinance. And it was a result of a lot of discussion and a lot of study that talked about the impact of our overnight accommodations on affordable housing and the fact that we were generating lots and lots of employees with no place to house them. And so both the city and county adopted an ordinance which requires that new overnight accommodations provide workforce housing as a part of their projects. Now, right now, we have a moratorium, or not a moratorium. We're not allowing any new overnight accommodations to be approved. So these fall in that category of having an application filed and in the process before we entered into the moratorium, and they're continuing through and toward construction. So all of those, once this ordinance was passed, is required to contribute to the assured workforce housing. There are a number of different ways you can do it. There's a fee in lieu, which relates to the type of overnight accommodation that you are building. And it's calculated on a square footage basis. You can also construct as a part of the project or on a different site, you can construct affordable housing. And the number of units you construct varies depending on your level of affordability. So the more affordable housing you're able to provide, the fewer units you have to do. And this ordinance, because it's relatively new, as with any new ordinance, there's some growing pains, and there are a number of things in the ordinance that we probably want to come along and modify here in a few months. But there's one in particular that we want to address at this point in time. Right now, and I know this was subject to some discussion, the minimum lot size for dwellings that are constructed is 1,000 square feet. And we have an application for a hotel who actually wants to build smaller units on site. So what they want to do is they want to provide, I don't know if it's low or very low. I think it's very low. So some really affordable units in a wing of their hotel, basically, and they'd be larger studio units. And reviewing that, we realized that there are lots of different kinds of people out there with lots of different income levels, and that some people may not want a 1,000 square foot unit. I haven't lived in a 1,000 square foot unit, I think, till now. I mean, I lived most of my life in a 900 square foot unit. So, you know, and there are different needs for different people. A lot of people like to have a smaller unit so they can have their own space, or a couple. I think there were concerns about cramming too many people in a small unit. I think there are concerns about cramming too many people in any kind of a unit. And we see that right now with some of our housing having multiple families and things like that in them. So we are initiating this amendment to reduce the minimum square footage for a floor area to 1,000 square feet, from 1,000 square feet to 400 square feet. Which would result in the ability for a small studio unit for 1 or 2 people.
A 60% reduction? 60% reduction in square footage required by the developer?
Yeah. Yeah, although, yes. So the code, it's just one little strike through on the code, which is in your packet. So that, in a nutshell, is what we're proposing. We're asking that you take public input and then continue the public hearing. Ultimately, we'd be asking you to make a recommendation to the city council at your next meeting.
Can you give us some information about where the city council is on this?
I have no idea.
You have no idea, okay, because I know this is bigger than we sent to them, and so that increase happened at the city council level, so I just want to make sure before we go through this process that they are on board.
There have been discussions. We actually brought it up in a meeting, and they said they'd be willing to entertain that.
Okay.
So that's as far as we know at this point in time.
And so this would be for all affordable housing units going forward, not just for this one development?
For anything built under the workforce housing requirements.
Yes.
So if they choose, of the 3 options, there's fee in lieu, there's providing land, and there's building housing. And if they choose the building housing option, this would then apply to that.
Right, to
anyone.
provide some flexibility. Most people are paying a fee in lieu, which is great because it goes directly into Walnut Lane pretty much. But we have had 2 now and the other one actually ended up just paying the fee as well.
So this would reduce their building cost by 60% if we're talking about square footage.
There may be some economies, for sure, but it's actually providing more affordable units on site. So we think there's a real advantage to that.
Okay. How many more so right now, last time we looked it over, it was 11 units required?
It's based on the affordability level, but I believe that that's what was being discussed, yeah.
So how would that change? How many more units are we talking?
We're talking about 11 units.
Yeah, it'd be the same amount of units, just
So
smaller.
instead of 1,000 square foot, 11 units as required, we're talking 400 square foot, 11 units.
Yes,
So
correct.
Okay, so why aren't we saying more units for 11,000 square feet?
For 1,000 square feet?
No, right now we're requiring them to give us 11 units at 1,000 square feet,
Right,
it's 1,000 square
right,
feet.
right.
If we reduce that to 400 square feet per unit, we're not getting 11,000 square feet anymore, we're
True.
getting 60% less.
But
So
that-
why aren't we just getting more units for 11,000 square feet of housing?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's
because
totally up to you.
It's
I
the
mean,
same as the fee in lieu.
Yeah, that doesn't track.
Otherwise, why aren't we cutting down the fee in lieu by 60%?
well, the fee in lieu is not based on unit size. It's a
Right, it's just based on
straight
units.
overall square footage of the project itself. We are trying to encourage affordable units of all types. And even in the discussions on the pad, we allowed units as small as 275 square feet. And there is an acknowledgement that we need smaller units as well as larger units. So we're doing what we can to try to encourage a variety of unit types. If you guys want to tie it to square footage and recommend that they do twice as many because they're half as big, you have that ability. I think what will probably result is we'll get 1,000 square foot units.
So
which,
the point and purpose of this, and that was a little confusing, I think, with how it was presented as well, was it's not to get more units out of the same development that we're talking about. It's just to make it more feasible, attractive to the developer to pick that option over the
Yes.
other two options. Okay,
Exactly.
and that's valid too. I just want to make sure that we're,
right, and
'Cause I
you
think
could
there
limit
was
it
some
to
confusion about
on-site too, if you
Yeah.
wish. You could say, you know, when the project is providing units on site, maybe, however you want to go with it.
that could be something to think about. We should open the public hearing, and then we can have our discussion afterwards. So I will open the public hearing at 6:17 PM on the ordinance amending the City of Moab Municipal Code, Section 1769050E. So when I call you, we just have one person. If anyone else wants to be heard on this, it's not too late.
Oh, yeah, that's right. How about if I download it and then you can open it?
We did have one letter that somebody wrote in.
Yes,
We did.
I forwarded that.
Yeah.
Yep, that was forwarded. That will be in, that is publicly available. Wherever my email went. Don't know. What the heck? Okay,
Which-
so,
Which file?
Apartment samples.
Was this the one that was sent in the email?
Yes.
I could probably just pull it up in the email.
I sent it out to them.
so
too,
Elizabeth
today.
Boone, if you want to go ahead and come up and wait just a second, if you have something presentation-wise you want to show.
Okay, I'm gonna put this,
And I could give a little bit of an introduction, but I'm the
Yeah,
architect.
just give a second, please. Yeah, thank you.
yeah, let me,
If it's just a home all by itself.
okay, where am I gonna put this?
And it was the same as the email. Okay.
You have it, okay, groovy. And you need to push your little button.
Yeah. Is there a way to get this full screen?
You guys ready? Yeah. Okay, if you want to introduce yourself, that'd be great. And then, if you wouldn't mind those two timers up there, when you start speaking, we don't have many folks, so we can likely give you more time too. So go ahead and flip it over.
Sure thing. My name is Elizabeth Boone. I'm with Reynolds Ashton Associates, and we're the architect that's working on the Henry Shaw Hotel.
Can you bring that a little bit
And
closer
we've been
to you?
working on the Henry Shaw Hotel since 2015. So this has been a project in our office for a while. And during this process, we encountered the workforce housing ordinance, which passed, and we've been working to adopt it in a way that still pencils for the project. So my critique of the 1,000 square foot units and the reason why it hasn't been executed to date and everyone's paying the fee in lieu of is because it doesn't pencil. So the cost per square foot of building these units, it's cheaper for the developers to just pay the fee and move on than to actually provide you guys with units. And so one critique is that, now all the units are concentrated into one location that the city controls versus sort of a variety of units throughout town on the same site as, say, the people that are working and could be living there to their benefit. So with that being said, I also wanted to share with you some typical apartment size samples from some projects that we've been involved with over the last few years. And I would also like to note that there has been a downward trend in apartment sizes in the last 10 years, and we're seeing a decrease of up to 12% in some cities. And so people are accommodating smaller lifestyles with the benefit of being, in a more walkable area or having proximities to other amenities. So this is actually a project that I'm working on in Gilbert, and I wanted to point out the studio unit at 423 net square feet on the left side of that drawing. You can go to the next one. This is a project that was just completed in Durango. This building is 100% sold. Very high demand for these types of units in Durango. This was not an affordable project by any means. It was sort of just market rate sales. And the studio unit there is 392 net square feet. Enter. Sorry, next. Oh, yeah, perfect. This one's actually under construction in Durango right now, and this is a series of studio units only, and these are each at 442 net square feet. We had such success with the previous project that really saw a position in the market for these 400 net square feet units, and that was sort of the driver on this project. And then I wanted to also show the proposed design for the units at the Henry Shaw Hotel. So these are 394 net square feet, 437 gross square feet. So that includes all the perimeter walls. And there's a couple little 3Ds of, a little kitchenette, a dining area, a bed. This could potentially be a Murphy bed, and then a closet with a full bath. So very livable. And then if you go to the final slide, this is actually the apartment that I lived in for 5 years in Manhattan, and it's 278 square feet. And I think one of the critiques that we saw in this letter was that how do people entertain and have enough space in these small units? And certainly after living in this unit, I didn't, and my neighbors didn't have any issues entertaining and still living a full life in 278 square feet. And so while we're not in a major city like New York, who is setting small unit trends, they recently built a micro-unit apartment for similar type of workforce housing, veterans housing, and their apartment ranges were 150 to 400 square feet. So we're not quite that extreme, but we do want to be reasonable about what is the baseline. And 1,000 feet feels very generous, and I think that there's room to reduce that to make it work for the developers.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Happy to take any questions.
Does anyone have questions while we have someone? All right, great, thank you.
I have a question.
Oh.
And so your purpose of being here is to share all of this because you're proposing
They're proposing to do that,
to do that.
yes.
Yeah, so if you go
Okay.
back 3 slides, I believe.
3 or
There we go. This is what we're proposing. So I think what I wanted to do is show a palette of successful apartments in the 400 square foot range, also share our 400 square foot workforce housing proposal, share with you that the cost of building this to us is about the same as the fee in lieu of.
That's good. Okay.
We prefer to build and have this availability on our site, but unless we have this reduction, we can't do that.
So that's where we're at here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And-
you're in favor of all this.
Yeah.
Great.
I should have started with that.
Okay,
You're the one who started it?
thank you, Elizabeth.
Okay.
Do we have anyone else for the public hearing tonight on this issue? And it will be continued
Yeah,
to our
Yeah.
February 13th meeting.
absolutely.
Great.
And certainly you can discuss it, but people will have another opportunity. And we did receive a public comment, which was forwarded to you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I will now continue the public hearing. If anyone would like to discuss things now, just to kind of get a general temperature before we hear more public comment potentially in 3 weeks, if that works on our schedule tonight, maybe take just a few minutes.
Sure, let's just crunch some numbers. How many square feet is the Henry Shaw Hotel?
We're at 113,000.
15.57 per square foot is your fee in lieu, is that right?
Yeah,
So you're at $1,759,410.
yep.
All right. What's the cost per square footage for you to build affordable housing?
$250 a square foot.
Bullshit.
Whoa.
Now, wait a second.
Excuse me?
Say that again.
Pardon my
No,
French.
wait.
That's not true.
But that's
All
relative.
right, let's
That's-
just pause. I think we need to, everybody just like take a minute because we don't need to be cursing
No.
to the public on the record.
I mean, you might be right if you're talking about land use, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so she's probably right. Okay, so I think the question she was asking is per square foot for a building that size. And we're thinking, what, you got 30 units in there or something? I don't know.
11.
11, okay, 11. So that square footage is going to go down, right? Does she have to build them on site to do this, or can she build them anywhere?
They can build them anywhere, but they have chosen to go this route.
Yeah, okay, that's good. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah.
So I have another leading question on that as well, for us. Okay, and that is that since this proposal is in front of us at 400 square feet, can I, if I owned a motel, could I build that unit anywhere
Yes.
in town?
Yes.
Okay? On a 1,000 square foot piece of ground?
Yes, you would have to build it, and this is another thing that we have to fix in the code, and probably deed it to the city or a public entity.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going with this. So that needs to be addressed. Although I like the idea of 400 square feet, though, because that makes total sense. You know what I mean? To have that small square footage, because if they're required to provide housing, they don't have to require to build something huge to have a huge family. They're meeting that requirement. But if they want to build two of them, do they have to have 2,000 square feet if they're connected?
I hadn't thought about that. They could make them 2,000 square feet if they wish.
But could they do it on less?
Yes.
Okay, so she's putting 11 units in there. Does she have to have 11,000 square feet to put that in, or can she do it? She can do it on a much smaller base.
The way this is proposed, they could be smaller units.
Smaller
11
units,
smaller
but smaller
units, yes.
property.
Yes.
And that's kind of where she was heading.
And you're absolutely right, Mary Ann. It's kind of cutting them a break, but it's also getting them built on site. So I think from our point of view, if somebody wants to come in and do a motel and they want to put them on site, then cool.
Okay.
We're trying to, we're really trying to encourage.
Yeah, I remember the discussion when we were writing and tweaking and passing this ordinance along to city council last year was, obviously the easy way out is going to be fee in lieu. It's simple. It doesn't require any future involvement on the part of the developer once everything's done. And how do we incentivize some of the things that are going to get us housing faster? Right now, we have Walnut Lane, so we actually do have a place that the fee in lieu is going directly, but we might not have that in a few years. We might not have a project that's actively happening. And if someone owns land already, or if you have a spot to be able to provide that, I mean, this is something we were talking about when we wrote the ordinance in the first place.
Right.
Perfect.
So-
So pardon my shock factor, but
We don't have to go with 400. We don't have to make that our recommendation. We can tie it to something, as Nora was
I'm
saying.
still talking. Pardon my shock factor with this, but our whole purpose here is to be helping our community. how does this project, 200 plus units, actually help our community? And how many jobs is that creating? According to our housing research, that's gonna create maybe like 100 more jobs, like housekeepers and maintenance people. Is that really worth 11 units of housing? We're already behind 1,000 units. So what I'm saying here is like, let's look at the bigger picture. We spent 3 years on affordable workforce housing for a reason. And now we finally came to an agreement and we're talking about this again. And they can pay the fee in lieu, fine. They're not asking for a 60% reduction in a fee in lieu. They're asking for a price cut on the project where they're gonna save $500,000 plus for square footage. I mean, just do what we asked for, pay the fee in lieu, but don't change something that we've been working on for 3 years, that we've put thousands of hours of eyes and lawyers into. That's my stance.
Anyone else have any questions or things to weigh in on today? We'll have a continuation of the public hearing in 3 weeks, and we can get more information by then too.
If you need specific information, we'd be happy to generate that, so just let me know.
Yeah, I think I would like maybe for other commissioners to think about if there's a way we could, my inclination, at least right now, is 1,000 square foot is too big to require. My house, my entire house is 1,000 square feet, and I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. So that's big, and I think the way that things are going, we do want to incentivize actually providing housing as a mix. We're always going to want a mix. We're always going to get the fee in lieu in some way, probably continuing with most developments. But if you do have a sizable project that's willing to provide something on site in particular, I think that's good. 400 does seem small. I'll be honest, looking at the mock-up of what's proposed, it seems small as well. So if there's some sort of happy medium we could come to where it would still be more of an incentive to provide that immediate housing to the community, but not quite that little, if we're not requiring more units, that again being a caveat, potentially we could require more units for a reduction in size too. And this might be something for the architect in the immediate stance to maybe have a sort of frank, open conversation with the planning staff about and say, realizing we're not going to, hold you to that necessarily, but any input we have because you're going through this right now would be really useful, about what would be feasible, what would tip you back over to fee in lieu, how big would be too big, how many units how many 450 square foot units would be too many units that would tip you back in fee in lieu. I think all that, because we have a real situation in front of us for the first time with this, was really useful information we should take advantage of. So yeah, there we go.
Well, I think it's also important to recognize some of the big differences between Moab and a city.
Sure.
People are coming to Moab. I first moved here to climb and to ride my bike, and you're going to have all this gear. People that are coming to live here are going to have bikes and boats and this and that. So is there an additional area they have access to store all their stuff? I mean, we do have a bike theft problem in this town, and we don't want to increase.
Right. So there are lots of different kinds of people looking for housing in the community. Mm-hmm. And I think most of the people that will work in the hotels and motels probably won't have bikes. They probably won't have cars. Some of them may have bikes as their only means of transportation. So if we're trying to hit very low income, which we're trying to do, and nobody else is really proposing that, then they probably aren't here to climb, and they're not here to ride their bikes. They're here to work and make money. So this kind of unit is oriented toward that kind of a person, and not the kind of person like you and me who, we have lots of stuff.
Well, I lived in my car when I first came here too.
I do think though, Nora, there is a bit more overlap than I think you're maybe recognizing. Sure. I do think that because when we're looking like all of our other affordable housing ordinances or things we've discussed have had on-site storage for things like that, and I think if that's something that can be provided, it would certainly kick that up, because on-site secure bike storage would be a huge boon. Having some sort of dedicated 4x4 storage unit for each housing unit as well. It doesn't even, it could be on the other side of the building, but as long as it's there. Like, there's actually a storage unit shortage in Moab as much as there is housing.
And I think there's
So-
a big difference between where a person will live and where they deserve to live. And this town is all about setting the bar high. Just because you're a Mexican immigrant family and you're forced to live in 300 or 400 square feet, it doesn't mean that that's the right thing for us to make these people do.
Certainly.
All right. If anybody else has any initial thoughts, you will have this discussion again in a few weeks.
Well, I have a lot of concerns about it, but rather than discuss it now, should we wait for that? I don't want to bore.
Additional information that you can provide, that you want us to provide to help you make a decision.
Okay, well,
That'd be
first,
the thing.
first of all, I think that the 400 square feet is not unreasonable. Okay, we were talking about this PAD system that we had going, and we were going much less than that.
Yep.
75.
Okay, so 400 square feet is quite a bit more than that, and I think she pointed out that there is some nice places for people. I don't think that they're required to give them the Taj Mahal. You know, I mean, they're employees. They're almost getting their rent. I don't know if it's free, if you could say it's free, but at least it's getting provided. My concern is that if they're going to put in, say, 11 units behind their motel, yeah, that's good because they can walk to work and they're there. I never liked the idea that the employer is also the owner of where they live. I've kind of been against that. But I do like the other side of it, that where they're living right on site, that it's easy for them to get to and from. But if they happen to build more, let's say that they hire X amount of people, say they have 30 employees, but 10 of them don't want to live there because they live in town, right? That's going to happen. I think that's obviously going to happen.
Right.
Then what do they do with the other half of them? Can they rent them out?
Yes.
Okay, so they can take them. They don't have to have them for employee housing.
They have to have them for workforce housing.
They have to have them. That's why they're there.
And
But
they
if they're-
have to be restricted as to the amount of rent they can charge based upon the income levels that they're trying to hit. And one of the advantages of the smaller units is that it's a much lower rent. So people who are really very low income can actually afford
Okay,
something.
so maybe there's not something in place about that, because I think what's going to take place here is if they build those buildings on their site and they only have half of them rented to employees that they provide, the other half are empty.
Well, no, you could rent them.
Unless you can rent them,
You can.
and you're going to stipulate
Will
what
they
that
be-
rent is?
Yeah,
It's in the ordinance.
they all have to be deed restricted. And they have to, there's a really strict formula as to the amount of rent you can charge and how much that can appreciate per year. So they are subject to 50-year deed restrictions.
On those units, and if they're not filled by employees, they will be offered to other qualifying low-income renters.
Yeah,
And if their employment changes, but they're still living in town?
well, it would be the tenant's choice. I don't know. I don't know. We haven't gotten to the details. They haven't even come to the planning commission for site plan approval yet because they don't know exactly what they're designing. Because they're actually talking about incorporating the units into the main structure.
Okay.
And having them have separate entrances and things. But, so it wouldn't be a separate building out back like the Hoodoo. It would actually be incorporated into the primary structure,
Okay.
is what they're proposing. But it would allow that,
Yeah,
definitely.
I would think that would be an issue, but I noticed down here that you've got on 1769 .050, the area of affordable housing, they're discussing affordable housing here for 1,000 square feet. Are they going to reduce that? Are they suggesting to reduce that affordable housing as well as the workforce housing? I mean, is this
Same thing.
is it really the same thing?
Well, I'm probably using the terms interchangeably, but they are subject to the assured
They're-
workforce
okay,
housing
Okay,
ordinance.
so they just kind of have to fall into that group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they have to build or contribute something per that ordinance.
Okay, so is affordable housing right now down to, have we got that down to 400 square feet?
Well, you can
Our-
build in the
yeah.
pad, you
No.
can build 275 square feet. You
Okay,
can also build a 500 square foot unit in the R3.
right.
So It's, you know, and it probably goes back to, should it have been 1,000 square feet to begin with? I mean, we're not seeing the units getting built, so maybe we're considering whether the original requirement should be adjusted. That's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
And if you think some numbers change, like if they make them smaller, they have to do more of them, that's an option. I don't know whether they will actually get them built. I mean, we're kind of trying to deal with reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to make sure we use whether or not we end up, I don't mean this as a cut, whether or not we end up recommending this to city council or what we recommend. We have a real world situation in
Right.
front of us, which we haven't had yet, and a chance to really use this to get something that is actually feasible.
Right, which is what happens when you adopt an ordinance and people are trying to figure out how to make it work, right? And there is, well, and we have to enter into, with the developer or whoever, we will enter into what's called a LURA, so it's a land use regulation agreement. It's a deed restriction. It's very restrictive. We were looking at another one. We were actually negotiating like a first right of refusal if somebody defaults. I mean, there's all kinds of, it's very complicated from a legal standpoint. But we haven't even begun some of those negotiations. However, the very low or extremely low income price point is defined by the county. HUD defines it. And so if you're trying to hit the very low, then it's a lot lower rent than a moderate or just 100% of AMI. So you're talking about hitting those lower income brackets.
Yeah. And another, thing we could think about would be having variation in unit sizes. Say you can have a minimum of 400, but a certain percentage, no more than a certain percentage of whatever units you're providing could be that small. If that would be something feasible too, so you don't end up with all 400 square foot units, you end up with a mix, which was kind of what we did at the pad, where it was intending a mix. Like, you need to have some very low, but they don't all have to be very low. And I think it does make sense if you're asking for very low income housing to have it be less than 1,000 square feet. I mean, just thinking about it.
Oh, well, it probably wouldn't be. It would be
I don't know.
very difficult to
Yes.
provide
Yeah.
a $300 a month rent
Yes.
for a 1,000 square foot unit.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a fee that's being set there then for, if somebody has a motel, they're providing this workforce housing, can they say, this is what we're charging our employee for rent?
They have to agree to maximum rents.
And that maximum rent is set by,
It's based on, there are formulas that are based on the level of median income in the county.
Yeah, it's the USDA formula. It's the same one they use
Okay.
for the rural development loans.
okay, but I'm wondering if an employer, in lieu of that rent, is going to be able to say that minimum wage that we're paying you, or let's say they're getting $12 an hour for cleaning rooms or something. Are they going to be able to put that down at 9?
Well,
They always could, as
they
long
could,
as the
but
legal minimum wage.
we would try to work something into the agreement so that wouldn't necessarily happen. And again, they could rent these to anybody. So
Well, I'm just saying that
anybody who works in.
it gets into a big bag of worms in
This
some
whole
ways,
thing
because
gets into a big bag of worms.
Yep.
This is an extremely complicated code that was adopted. And it's almost, with this exception, it's almost impossible for people to actually build the units because of the land costs associated with it. And, and so we want to try to get something. We don't want to give people a free ride. We understand that there's a huge impact. On the other hand, what's going to get units built?
because if they can't afford it, how can the city?
Well, that's a problem we're having.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if
On that land,
you're
it's
gonna
a-
if they're
it's
gonna
a
pay in lieu of,
Yeah.
and then if it's not enough for them to be able to afford it, then the city's gonna be in the red.
Well, the city's, yeah, that is a
And
concern.
I'm not sure they can afford that.
The idea, I think, being with providing housing, I think, as far as code writing, we should pretend that these units are anywhere that they're providing.
We should.
We have to. You know, if an employer is going to pay poorly, I don't agree with this, but the argument would be that the free market will make it so they can't hire employees. I don't think that's true, but, you know, that's the, you know, if you have, you know, if you get first come, first serve on housing units at your employer, and then they're opened up to other members of the community, you can take them. You know, I don't know that we can talk about wages at all.
It's not, no,
Yeah.
it's crossing too many.
It is. But I would just like to make one more comment, and that is, I think the 400 square feet is not unreasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
I've lived a lot.
Yes, I don't think it's unreasonable as a living space. Whether or not we want to allow it as the minimum in all
Right,
instances is
exactly.
a different story. Yeah.
Yep, I agree with you.
Great.
So maybe I'll try to set up sort of some alternatives to talk about.
Yeah.
At your next
And
meeting.
if you're available to continue discussions with the planning staff, it'd be really great to kind of get those outward parameters, because you're sort of mired in it right now. Just understanding, if you give us, here's your high-end square footage number, we're not going to be like, okay, we're going to do that. So be as forthright as you can, I think, with staff.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
All right, public hearings continued, so on to action item number 7. Review and possible recommendation to City Council on Resolution 01-2020. Oh, it's our first resolution of the new year. The 2MAC minor subdivision located at 1053 Mill Creek Drive, Moab, Utah, 84532.
Great. Well, I'm going to take this item. A quick review over the details, and then we'll get into the overview summary. This item involves subdividing the 1.49 acre parcel located at 1053 Mill Creek Drive into 3 lots. Lot 1 becoming 0.62 acres, Lot 2 becoming 0.36 acres, and Lot 3 becoming 2.22 acres. This property is currently vacant and situated immediately west of the gravel Lanes Bowling Alley and has street frontage access to Mill Creek Drive. Both this property and the bowling alley are Zone C4, General Commercial Zone. Directly across from this property, across Mill Creek Drive, are the Cinema Court Apartments and section of the county property zone, Small Lot Residential and General Business. Access for the lots will be from Mill Creek Drive, and all utilities are already established in the public right-of-way. The property has a cliff or hill, as it's described in the application, on the northern boundary. No removal or contouring is being requested. During the processing of this application, the original draft was amended to show the 40-foot road dedication easement required by an arterial road route from what was originally the 33-foot road dedication. And we have
The applicants.
applicants here as well to discuss that if they'd like to. But the applicant's intent for subdividing this parcel into smaller lots was for hopefully local developers to build small commercial projects to serve the local community. And this is the proposed plat.
And they are actually dedicating quite a bit of property to that right-of-way. Initially, we had talked to them about a certain width, and then when this application came in, the engineering department is asking for additional property because this is identified as an arterial. So it's a real benefit. Getting that property will allow the future expansion of this roadway. Because of the hills, it's in a quarry, right? So that's why. And any development would have to have a hillside permit and go through that process. So you wouldn't be able to build on that hillside, and it would have to be protected somehow. But each piece would have to then come back to you for site plan approval.
So basically, you're taking 1.5 acres?
Yeah, if the project proponents would like to come up, that'd be great. If you wouldn't mind, when you sit down, just say your name into the microphones for the public record, that'd be fabulous.
Doug McElhaney.
And I'm Jeremy McElhaney.
Great.
We're related, but we're not married. Had to be clear.
Questions?
Oh, well, so you're taking 1.5 acres
Yes,
that fronts Mill Creek, right there down by the bowling alley.
right.
And you're going to divide it basically into, not thirds, but kind of.
Right,
You can have 3 different lots.
right. The lot number one is bigger, but it's not more usable because the hill takes a lot of it out.
They're probably making you stay away from that a little bit.
Right,
But that's the engineer thing. I understand that, I understand
Yeah,
that. So,
yeah.
so, and the intent is it's zoned commercial,
Yep,
and across the street is apartments,
right,
and on your backside is total
commercial.
commercial. And what you propose is you're gonna build commercial buildings.
No, I'm not proposing that. I'm proposing, the property is an acre and a half commercial. For most small developers, it's insurmountable. The lot plan, the engineering, the parking lot, it's insurmountable. It can't be done by a small developer. And so I've tried for 2 years. It's unbelievable.
Okay. So you're now here for this.
So to make it more realistic, I propose splitting it into 3 manageable size lots. That way, a small commercial development could be built on it without a 30-space parking lot. And so hopefully, a local developer, local person would want to buy one and build a small building on it. And that's the reason for doing it.
Okay.
And
But
all
just-
3 would remain C4?
There's no change in zoning.
I have one question then, Doug. So these lot lines that we see here, can you build right next to each other on the buildings here to take advantage of the property?
And the C4 zone allows to build right next to each other, just like Main Street.
Okay,
So if they're constructed right, you could build, if there's no windows, it's a firewall, you could build next to each other, just like
okay,
downtown Main Street. You can't build to the street because there's
true, setbacks,
there's a 15-foot landscaping setback and a 25-foot building setback,
okay,
which is also why you lose a lot of property.
yeah, just on that alone.
Right.
It's just alongside of that angle,
And-
so it's a very substantial piece.
And as Nora said, the street there is 70 feet, 60 feet? Now it's 80 feet.
80 feet, it
right
was
away.
60.
Yeah.
So it's
The streets around it aren't that wide. And I guess because of the timing, I will give up a considerable amount of property to the city, and there probably won't be a 80-foot wide road there for
Right,
my lifetime.
right, exactly.
But because it's next to a turn and there may be a turning lane or something that the wider road will help.
Yeah.
I think that's the reasoning behind it.
So does that southeast boundaries right there, does it give enough, it does, I see that. So the parking goes into the bowling alley, and you're right on basically their asphalt or their hard surface?
There's actually a little bit of an incline there, a very small incline.
Right,
is where the property line is.
My property's a little higher than their parking lot, and their parking lot is, their parking lot's
We're
concrete.
awake.
And this was the original plan.
What do you need?
This is the original plat. There is a 10-foot utility easement that doesn't show on this. There's a 10-foot utility easement on it, on the
Bowling alley.
on the bowling alley side. And the reason for that is so that all of the utilities won't have to be in front of the building. And so there will be a 10-foot utility easement so that,
Right on down to, I'll get to the back of it.
right, so that the gas and power may be in the back, water and sewer will all come in the front.
Front, yeah.
Okay.
It's a good use of the land.
Well, maybe you get something there.
Yeah, exactly.
And having the bowling alley is already there, the bowling alley already serves food. And so, and there's the cinema courts across the street, the new subdivision next to them, and then the proposed subdivision on the other side of the the hill from it.
Right, right.
And so there
Oh,
will
yeah.
be a lot of people there. So hopefully something will be built there.
And direct access to where USU is going to go across Main Street, so.
Yes. So, yep. So that's the plan.
And that potentially could be commercial on the bottom and apartments on the top.
Correct. Yep, it could be, it can't be living downstairs, it could be living upstairs.
Cool.
And it can't, well, for several reasons, it can be overnight accommodation, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So what gets built there, we're not talking about that today.
True.
I just want to split it up.
Right.
I have an idea what I would like to do on it, but I need to split it so that it's affordable,
Right.
Makes sense.
possible.
Any other questions for the applicants from anyone? All right, great. So there's a few options. You guys can sit down if you'd
Okay.
like. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have several options. We can forward a positive recommendation on this proposed ordinance to the city council with or without revisions. We can forward the recommendation to the city council, or we can continue the item and give specific direction to the applicant and staff as to additional information needed. So we can discuss now before a motion, or take a motion and then discuss.
I move to forward a positive recommendation to City Council for the approval of the 2 Mac minor subdivision, Resolution 1/2020.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Unanimously. It's been a long day.
Unanimous, Joey.
Yes. Yeah, thank you all. Good luck.
Thanks.
All right. Item number 8, continued discussion of development standards for overnight accommodations. That's new and different.
Oh, boy. So all I'm going to do tonight is go over the additional information that I created based upon the city council's request. We're at a point, I have to do this, let me do this. I don't multitask very well.
I can't say unanimously, so don't worry about it.
So the council met at their last meeting and discussed this at some length, and there wasn't really very clear direction given. There was lots of directions given, but not necessarily in the same direction. So what I would propose, and we're going to talk to the council about it, not at this meeting, but their next one, is kind of stepping back and maybe having some joint work sessions with the Planning Commission and the City Council, and really try to get to the core of what it is they're trying to achieve and how they want to achieve it. There are different council members, as I'm sure there are different planning commissioners, that sort of have their favorite things about what they want to get out of this. And so we need to kind of figure out how that works. And I know, and one of the things we will also be talking about is potentially, the council, there are 2 council members who feel very strongly that we need to do some kind of a restriction on the number, at least until we get caught up. So I'm sure we will be having additional discussions. So all I wanted to do was share with you the additional information that I dug up.
Is there like an actual breeze in here right now? It feels really cold.
Cold?
I don't feel
Oh, my legs. It's on my legs.
Okay, so there have been all these numbers that have been, is this even the right one? Yeah. There have been lots of numbers floating around about numbers of units and how many existing rooms there are and how many proposed, and somewhere we ended up with this calculation that the number of overnight accommodation units that are in the queue were 38% of what we currently have. And that's actually, I don't even know where that number came from. I think it came from the county's numbers. So the city council,
It is total for the county.
this is not.
Oh, I
This
know, but
is
the
city
38%
only.
number
Yeah.
was, yeah.
So this is actually just for the city. And it's about 20% basically that we have in the queue right now that are moving forward, and we're almost through all of those. And it also compares the total number of bedrooms we have, 3451, that includes all kinds of overnight accommodations. The 2136 is an estimate of the number of hotel rooms. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Worldmark, for example, those units vary in size, and I haven't sat down and counted all the bedrooms, but most of the others are based on bedrooms. So we just wanted to give people real numbers to work with. And these are all in commercial zoning, and they're all reflected on the established overnight accommodation map, all of the existing ones. The ones that are proposed are highlighted in a lighter color. And the only one left that has not been approved by the Planning Commission is the Henry Shaw. The rest of them most of them have the building approvals. They're just waiting, they're just starting construction. Some of them are under construction. So I wanted to give you real numbers. So that's what that thing does. Then we have another display that Corey prepared that actually shows the parcels that are left in the RC zone. So the undeveloped parcels, so that you can see what's really out there. And Grant County is this one, Moab Tramway. We actually have an annexation agreement or a pre-annexation agreement with them that talks about limitations on use. As far as the tramway piece itself, which is actually this piece, they can do some additional retail at their base and at the top. This one could potentially have a hotel on it, this parcel. These parcels, and it has the acreages. This is 3.6, this is 2.12, this is 3.76. One of the changes that I proposed in the latest version was requiring a minimum of a 2-acre minimum lot size for an overnight accommodation. So that means that these could not be subdivided and have 2 on each one. This one is a smaller lot that exists. And then this parcel doesn't seem to have legal access from anywhere. This is in a conservation easement. And it's in the county, it's not even in the city limits. And so then this parcel right here is where Moab My Place, which you approved, is going. This is where Worldmark is going. This is where the Element is going. And then these are the campgrounds, just so you're aware of what's real and what's out there.
Cool, thank you.
And there was some discussion with one of the landowners out here about the standards as we were proposing them, emphasizing the commercial, requiring a certain amount of commercial and incentivizing that. And they actually thought that was a good idea and thought that, their vision was a small boutique hotel and then a separate kind of retail thing that could serve either people staying out here or the kinds of businesses that we need in town. So there's at least somebody who thinks we're on the right track. But we're going to just kind of give ourselves a couple weeks of breathing room, mostly me and the council, for them to kind of figure out where they want to go with it, and then we will move forward.
Great. Is there anything that they wanted from us at this point?
Only, all of their comments were very individual comments.
Yes, they were.
And so, for me to spend a lot of time on all of their individual comments is not terribly efficient. Mm-hmm. And so where we'd really like to get is for them, at least 3 of them, to give us some direction so we're not all spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
And, they're narrowing down on things, and it's a process, and I understand it, and it's a big deal. So, there will be lots, and we're not dropping it completely. There will be lots more discussions on it, but we're going to take a little step back and reprioritize a little bit.
That sounds good. It seems like the best thing we can do at this point is get that joint meeting scheduled.
Yeah.
Likely. Do you have any idea of how soon we can get that on the agenda to make sure? Because I know we're having all kinds of attendance issues right now. So.
Yeah, and the way I put your yearly agenda, we have 2 meetings a month, and then the city council generally schedules quarterly joint work sessions. Sometimes they work on the date that they're designated, sometimes they don't. They assume that you're coming to city council. Which
They
doesn't-
do?
Yeah, which isn't always the,
Do they want us there?
only at these quarterly meetings.
Yeah,
If
for
we
the-
have joint items.
For-
And so
They're
what-
not assuming we're coming every other week, just for
Okay,
those
well,
meetings.
You know
yeah.
what? I mean, but since we're talking about that, I would really like to know if they want us there. If there's ever a meeting they're having and they would like us there, I want to be there.
And we have reached out to you on a couple of them when that was the case. But these are just regularly scheduled to talk about things that we have in common. I think right now, there's a lot of confusion. So I would hate to just go into another sort of free-for-all, if you will. So I'm going to try to direct that discussion a little bit. So I will let you know. It may be on a planning commission night, it may be on but we definitely will need to have special meetings, I think, with both groups.
Absolutely.
And
So-
we'll try to figure out a schedule as soon as we can.
And while we're on that topic, one of the issues that I've noticed is that, or problems we're having is that our meetings are sometimes so sporadic that we don't get much done. We really don't. I mean, if we're really trying to get something done for them, and once the city council decides what they do want, and I know I talked about this, Nora, and that is that rather than try to do this like on just the 13th and 27th, because by the time we get to there for 1 hour,
Right,
we don't get to feed off each other enough.
right.
And I want to do that. I want to be able to get your opinions and do that if we have to have it publicly or not. We need more than just 2 meetings to accomplish anything.
I understand, and we have to have it publicly. Yep. We also, I mean, what I would prefer is a less formal format, where we all sit around a big table, but we can't do that because of our public, we have to record it, and it's up on YouTube, and that restricts the way we can do meetings. Which makes it more difficult because
Yeah,
it
it
feels
does.
more
It does,
formal.
it does, I'm sure, but we're not getting anything done.
Well, we
Well, we
can,
got a
and
lot done for-
we did talk about,
Yeah.
I know last fall, and scheduling was difficult, and, we had enough regular scheduled meetings, but doing special work sessions.
Probably will.
We could call a Wednesday at 6 PM meeting where we're here talking about nothing else. We have to
Right.
sit like this, but we don't have to do public comment and all of that, so.
Right.
And I think, I'm certainly amenable to that. I think we should really, that's what I mean, where it's like, it's still winter, no one's, all off doing their own March and April things yet, so the
Yeah.
sooner the better, I think we can get those things.
Sure, I mean, I definitely don't want it to languish for too long.
And even if we are taking, I do think, I understand the break and sort of the breathing room and getting things figured out, but I would say maybe we might not need that at this point, the way that city council might.
Right, I just
so-
need a little bit more direction from council,
Okay.
is what I'm looking for.
You do, and the one thing that the people who left our planning commission, the last 2, one of the complaints they had was that we're talking about the same thing over and over and nothing ever gets accomplished,
I understand.
but we're new. We're new, and we can do it, okay? We have new blood, and we're gonna feed off what they said and make it happen.
And local government isn't easy. I mean, it's really, it's not. It's like making sausage, It's not always pretty in the process. But that's what we have. And we have to work within the parameters that we have. And it will take a big education for Luke and the new commissioner. But I think fresh perspective is fabulous. So I think it's great.
Yeah. So his recommendation would just be to continue to look at the emails that Nora's been sending with updates about where things are with city council, so we're not all totally fresh when it does come time for us to do something again about it.
Or read the
That's been
paper.
really helpful.
I'll
If you
take-
want,
I'll take that.
I've gone to a few city council meetings. You can sit there with me and make faces when they ask questions that we feel like we've answered 6 times. It's fun.
But Kaya, the reason why I don't go is because I don't want to make them feel like that I'm there because we're trying to,
Don't worry, they won't think that.
They won't think that.
I mean, we're on their side.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I want them to know that we're there to be educated as to where they're at. So if that's okay, I'm going to start attending.
Yeah, but it
can.
has been helpful the times that I've gone. Confessedly, it was for other reasons that I was there,
Yeah.
but you catch all that stuff anyways, and it's useful to kind of get that, oh, this seems to be where, you know, someone is stuck on, and then you can start kind of turning those gears in your head and thinking, okay, if they do.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can always watch the meetings too. It's kind of
Yeah, you can watch them,
painful,
yeah,
but
you can.
Yeah, true.
That's, might be even better in some cases.
yeah. Well, no, they can't see my facial
It's
expressions.
actually, yeah, I mean, some of us, and I'm really limited, we don't sit still and not, I mean, my body language is right out there, so,
Yeah, mine too.
you know, some of us should probably watch it on TV.
Okay. Thank you, Nora, for the update, and thank you, Nora and Corey and all the staff always for going through this whole thing. And
It also looks like, hopefully at your next meeting, we'll have Four Corners Behavioral Health.
good.
They're having some storm drainage engineering stuff that is kind of holding them up a little bit. They are requesting a parking reduction as part of that, which is your jurisdiction. And after that, we don't have a heck of a lot in queue. So that's good in terms of overnight accommodations and other things that we're trying to get done. We are keeping a list of every time we run into a code section that we say, well, that's what? To try to make note of that. I mean, my goal really is sometime in the next couple of years, we can't do it next year because we have no money, but at some point to do a complete overhaul of the code, to make it more, there's things all over that code and it's really hard to find things. It's not user-friendly at all.
Yeah, even searching online, it's really hard.
It's really
to
hard.
find
Yeah.
Are there,
answers to questions.
It is, and so that's one of the things that we definitely want to work on. There's also, the city council is having a strategic planning session in February sometime. And so hopefully out of that, we'll get some direction from the council as to what their priorities are.
Great.
So that'll help us too in terms of, and then I'd like to sit down and chat with you guys.
Cool.
So,
Sounds great. Thank you. So
Thank you.
that's future items then.
yeah.
All right. Anything else from anyone before we adjourn?
No, I think we're good. Thank you all.
Okay, adjourn planning commission meeting at 7:11.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone. Welcome, newbies. Newbie.